going through something just like this, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you think about the darkness of the Gravediggers or the lyricalness of Wu-Tang and the I don't know, the brightness of something like a gravel pit, all those different elements when I think when I'm creating, they all find their way into my art, you know what I mean?
But I think what's really interesting too is watching this is that by the end of it, you've taken us through so many places. First of all, you're such a great audience yourself, and this is a real audience movie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely an audience movie. Y'all have fun watching this? Let me ask one question if you don't mind. Were you uncomfortable in some scenes of this movie? Okay, just want to make sure. I thought that it would be something that would make, I thought the...
Were they uncomfortable?
No, because I wanted... Elvis, no, because I wanted, to me, I think a film it should do three things. It should entertain you, right? And it should then also be provocative, provoke you into emotions. And then it should be also inspiring. You know what I mean? So if those three elements come together, and that's what I was striving to do, whether through the action or through the acting of the actors, through the different music cues, everything was to try to get that balance between entertainment, provoking ideas, and inspiration.
Well, you do that so often in your work. I mean, not just here, but I was thinking about these movies form kind of a trilogy between Man with the Iron Fist and Cutthroat City and this. They're all three movies about young black men who have their potential taken away from them, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I was lucky to get Shameik Moore for two of those. Shameik Moore in the building, thank you.
Yeah, this is really the Shameik Moore exercise video. I've never seen. First of all, the fights that we were just talking about backstage were really staged like fights and not like clean John Wick type action sequences, but we sort of feel him trying to sort of figure out how to get through the fight as it's happening instead of knowing how to fight as he walks into a room, don't we?
Yeah, the plan was for the action to try to, ground it as much as we can. Of course, I'm so inspired by Asian cinema, whether it's La Ka Lung, John Woo, Sue Hark. Those are inspirations for me, but I didn't want this to have that spillover. Of course, if you watch movies like Old Boy, you see I threw a homage back to that. When I say one spoon of chocolate, as a filmmaker, it's a spoon of all my inspirations from other films kind of coming together. It's like hip hop is known for sampling, right? And when I that's how me and Quentin became cool. I realized he was a hip hop director because he would sample ideas to make his idea. And I learned that that's a best language is to study film, knowledge it and absorb it, let it go through your system, and then you digest it back like sampling. And so there's a spoonful of all my favorite directors in this film.
But I also feel like there's a lot of you in this. I mean, there's something I was noticing that the young black men who are getting killed are both wearing black, rather, they're wearing red when we meet them. The young man we see at the beginning of the movie, he's got that red jacket on. When we first meet his cousin, he's wearing that red shirt, he's driving the red car. So you're marking these guys as targets that way, aren't you?
Yeah, everything has to be honest, everything has a subtone and a subtext. And I guess as a filmmaker, I try to put a lot of different lines together. Even though this is pretty weird and probably pretty just creatively bugged out, right? Is when you meet Emyri's character, she comes in with the lubrication, right? And she puts it down. You see that this is what she used, but her friend said she gets it from her mother's job. And then when we see, the last time we see the dead body of Ramsey, you see the lubrication still in the frame, you know what I mean? And that's just the way of me thinking creatively, how does everything tie together? How did this world tie together? How does one thing that someone else do eventually leads to another thing that's in your life as a character? And that was part of my gags.
That's funny too, because you mentioned that, talking about her mother. We meet her mother, she's selling tickets to the bus station, and then we see her laughing whatever that sitcom is, so we get a sense of who she is, even before we heard about the lubricant from her. So you're really trying to help, you make a real small town feel out of this. You make sure we know who everybody is, and I think that's really interesting because it's all really clear who and what everybody is.
Well, respect. I've spent some time in some small towns. I rode that
We'll
bus.
be letting you back in Ohio anytime soon.
I just left Ohio last month.
But I was thinking too, there's an old film, first of all, so many quotes in here, but I was thinking about this old movie, Gordon's War. Do you remember that movie? Gordon's War?
Yes, yes, yes.
And for you guys who don't know, it's about a bunch of black Vietnam veterans who come back and clean up their neighborhood by using the skills they learned in the army to fight these drug dealers. In fact, there's a scene from that movie where these women are seen cutting together heroin without tops, and it's been quoted probably 100 times, including American Gangster.
Yes, including in American Gangster and Cutthroat City. That's the beauty of film. Like those that come before us, they pioneer ideas, and then those who come after, we get to take ideas and try to build upon them. But Gordon's War was a classic. Jonathan earlier, he mentioned Three the Hard Way, which, yeah, it had to find its way into this film. But then there's even, films when
Warriors is one of
the
them.
Warriors, or even when Jimmy Dean comes to that small town, he rides that train on the top, and he's like all those different things find their way to blend into your story.
I want to talk to you too again because this theme of black men who really seem to have a future. I was thinking about seeing how that great job Shameik does in Cutthroat City, where he goes in with his drawings and it looks like he's got his whole life ahead of him, and he's squashed, and the same thing kind of happens to him here, and that's something you revisit in your movies in a lot of ways.
Well, when you think about being black in America, right? So our experience is going to end up in our art, and there's so many times that doors are closed just because of the surface, skin tone, or judging the book by the cover. But then there's so much more that we got to offer, and we've offered so much more. If you, our character says at the end of the film, and not to get like this was a big political film, but at the end he said there's so many stories of the greatness of what we bring to the country, not just our bodies, right? Of course, we could be leaders in sports, we could be leaders in entertainment, but we've done great in science, medicine, engineering. There's so many other elements that we bring.
This is also literally the metaphor of how black bodies are commodified in here, isn't it?
That's what I mean. It's like our bodies, like beyond the B story of it being, the organs and everything. Yeah, but it's like, no, sometimes it's our physical is what people want. Not realizing our mental is just as vast or even more, And so we get taken on face value. Then you won't even learn how many great things that, we've done mentally or spiritually. And so it was cool that our character tapped on it. And then another thing that I thought he tapped on that's important to me as an American citizen, because when I travel around the world, I travel as an American citizen. That's my passport. And if America is looked upon as an asshole of the world, that's how they treat me. When America is looked upon as the light of the world, that's how they treat me. So I've been in different president administrations. When Obama was president, they was opening the door like this, yo. Seriously. They was hooking me up, you know what I mean? But when Bush was president, it was deep, you know what I mean? So those type of things, once again, find their way into our art.
But I think it's a really complex movie because, he takes care to clean the blood off that painting of the flag on the wall. So we see his loyalty and his patriotism there too, don't we?
Yeah, like he said to the villain, he said, it's self-evident. That's a big word when we say self-evident. That means nobody got to tell you. All right? You don't got to write it. You ain't got to say it. It's self-evident that water is wet. That's it. And so when the forefathers wrote that document, they weren't kids. You know what I mean? They weren't, a bunch of people trying to find themselves. These were mature men who've lived and did, grotesque things in life, as well as did good things in life. And then get to a point to where, okay, let's form a document to represent what the goodness could be. And declare, right? Declare the independence of life, of every man, you know what I mean? So that's written. People can practice it how they want to practice it, right? You can tell me 5 plus 5 is 15 all you want, and you can fool the whole audience, but it's still 10. And so that self-evident line I thought was important. And I think when Shameik Moore, when he delivered it, like every time I watch it, and I've seen it 100 times or 1,000 times, I always feel the reality of it. It's self-evident, you know what I mean? We don't need no proof of it. The proof don't need truth. It's the lie you got to try to prove.
Tell me about the first time you met Shameik, because obviously he's your go-to. So what was that first conversation like? Do you remember?
Wow, I think I met Shameik, he might have been 19 years old. And we just had this, I had to talk about the man while he's here, but he just had this artistic innocence, right? Which to me allows him to be a sponge. So every actor has a certain type of talent. Some will go and study, and become methodical. But then you got those who can actually absorb the situation and put themselves there and live through it at that moment. So I saw him doing that in Cutthroat City, and not to embarrass the young man, but he never held a gun before Cutthroat City. But yet you watch him in the movie loading his gun, using it with the confidence as well as with the innocence. And so I'm a fan of his, and we've done a few projects together, and if we're blessed, I always hit that phone. He's getting bigger and bigger, but I'm always gonna hit that back phone for you, bro.
I also want to talk to you about how important the women are in this. I mean, you know that Randy's girlfriend's mother is an important part of the plot. In fact, again, that for me, this is about this being a community, that the black community is kind of its own underground that keeps messages alive, that tries to keep itself alive. And I wanted to, first of all, I have you talk about that, because you said it's not political, but I think in addition to being a really satisfying action film, it is political.
Well, let's just say this, right? There's an element in this film that's old school generation, new school generation. And I think that that the sheriff and even Mr. Lindsay, I think they represent some of the old school ideas. But when you get to Emyri's character, Paris' character, Shameik's character, and RJ character, they represent the new ideas. You know what I mean? They're already best friends. They're already living the vision of what equality can be, right? They're not looking at each other in no funny ways, so they represent the new. And sometimes the old ways just continue to be permeated upon us, you know what I mean? But as an artist, I was conscious to be like, yo, this group of kids, right? You can see them right outside right now. If you go outside, you'll see that's the friend group right there. But that old group where everybody was kind of tribal into their own, and you can still see that too, but I think that's dwindling more than the new way.
I'm going to talk to you about the women in the film, because I mean, they're really wonderful. They're great actors, and they really are part of the story. I mean, the way she doesn't recoil when she's stitching up his face. I mean, that's...
Well, could we get a round of applause for that cast in this film, please? I mean, to the cast, if you guys don't mind, if the cast is still in the building, you guys mind standing up real quick? Yeah, Underwood, Cyler, Goodwins. Isaiah Hill, Damani Crutchfield, where's James at? Donnell. Bong Bong. I like that suit, kid, looking like Bong Bong. No, seriously, and each one of them, you know, I guess I'll give you a little behind the baseball. This wasn't, even though it's an action film and you could call it a genre film, but it's still, the dialogue wasn't easy. The relationships that everybody had to build and act towards each other wasn't easy. And as actors, everybody stepped up professional and delivered it day after day, you know? And I was nervous about it. We had an HR meeting, which you gotta have every film, you gotta do an HR meeting. And we all just talked about it, like, look, there's gonna be things that he gotta say to him, he gotta say to him, he gotta do to him, he gotta do to him, she gotta do to her, like all those different elements. And my actors trusted me, I trusted them, and they really delivered it for me the way that I wanted to do.
Well, your wife and co-producer who gave up a house to make this movie was telling me that you've been working on this in one way or another since 2012.
Yeah, this movie is 13 years in the making, yeah.
You put it down and came back to it, because it feels like it's a tough thing to write, because there's a lot of hard truths in it.
Yeah, it was tough to write. I got writer's block on it a few times. And even tough to make. When we was making it, when me and Paul Hall, our producer, when we got ready to do it, shout out to Paul. When we got ready to do it, we looked at it, and it was pretty ambitious for the budget that we had allocated. And so it was like, we can't do it for that budget. So then I had to call another executive producer, my brother Devon Diggs, in the building. And Devon had to put that other boat on hold, go into the safe and uncrack the lock, and he came to the table and he believed in the vision as well, you know, which is great. Like, it's nothing better than having people to believe in your vision. At the time we did this film, I want to share, it was like the writer's strike had just ended. A lot of people actually wasn't working, right? A lot of the crew and the industry was in a tough time, but we was like, yo, we love this industry, we love this art form. We're going to take economics and bring it to some city. We thought New York first, New Jersey, we thought Ohio, Pittsburgh. We ended up going to the beautiful city of Atlanta, which I think was the best bang for our dollar to be reality, so thank you, Atlanta. And we just went, yo, and it took, they say it takes a village, it took a village and the village bank account.
Well, one of the things I was noticing too, again, talking about the politics, that we know who everybody is by the way they dress. At one point when those guys are beating people, they're wearing polo shirts and khakis. And I couldn't help but think about, you know, good people on both sides kind of the argument. And this feels like an especially necessary time for this movie right now to me.
Well, respect. You know, our costume designer, Lorraine, was in the building. Hey, Lorraine. She was smart, right, as we was designing the costume, she was smart to, like, choose, like, the various imagery that our villains would have. So in one capacity, we both was like, they gotta be different. We don't want the normal plaid shirt, which we actually show you when we get to Pelago, is the guy behind the counter. Yes. He's the classic thing you would see if you watch the black exploitation films of the 80s or the 70s, right? But then when our boys came out, they was looking like they had bars, you know what I mean? They had on velour suits and shit.
Like, looked like a lot of Tommy Hilfiger, not that I'm trying to...
Yeah, they had the Hilfiger, but also though, that she pointed out, like, that there's also this undertone, traditional, non-traditional. What I mean by that is, like, the person who you don't think is feeling that way about you, you know? And that's the white polo shirts. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna roll with you on this. And I think it turned out great, especially in the scene when they're beating Ramsey, which I decided to use the shadows for that scene. I felt like there was enough brutality in the movie of that particular style of violence. And so for there, I just wanted to show an artistic way of watching Ramsey be killed.
But also, if you look at metaphor too, because so much of that kind of violence happens to black people happens in the shadows.
Wow, these are artists right here. Hold on, we got to know we talking that this is Elvis Mitchell, all right? This ain't the average man right here. Hey, Elvis, let me say something.
Thank you for that indifferent round of applause. Really, I feel really good about it.
No, let me just say something about this gentleman.
No, that's enough of that. Come on, anyway.
No, I got one more thing about you, but let me get it off. No, because your knowledge of film is, he's an encyclopedia. There's very few encyclopedias that I've come across and had a chance to talk with and be inspired by and be advised. Oh, did you see this or you see this? You're one of those dudes, yo. You know what I mean? And him and The Godfather, they go for hours on how many different films that they see. So this man is an encyclopedia. And if he appreciates your work, you better know that it has to be worthy of appreciation. So thank you for coming through.
So anyway, I mean, getting back to this whole thing, the conscious, that scene when Unique is in the Pelago store, he's wearing that old school jacket, which first of all, he's behind the 8 ball, but also that's a jacket that's been passed around from generation to generation.
Yes, indeed. And the idea is that maybe it was Lonnie's jacket.
Exactly.
Yeah. In fact, we had a shot of it when he first goes in the room. We actually established it, but we didn't. We edited it out. My editor, Joe, I think Joe made it. Our hair and makeup team made it. Bum, thank you. But okay. Anyway, making a film, it takes so many people in so many departments, man. And they really worked hard for me. We shot this film in 28 days, Paul? Was it 28 days? 28 days, bro.
I mean, it's such a powerful film, and one of the things that I really find alluring about it is I can feel your confidence as a director. I mean, you really take your time with a lot of it. And also, too, there's that trust of introducing, for the most part, these are actors that people don't know. So we really get to lean in and pay attention in a way that we don't with their movies with actors that stars in them. And I just thought that really gives us this almost kind of a folkloric feel. It's something like Last House on the Left, or those 70s movies where we didn't know people, and so we're like really watching, and we get invested in those people too, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. And whether we know the talent individually, because everybody have their own fans, I think that what they did was they allowed the work to flow through them. I mean, not to put her on the spot, but think about Paris Jackson, right? She doesn't have to be an artist. Okay? So she's not doing it like some people do this as a job because it's a job you need, and some people just love art. And every day she came to work, she absorbed the work, she did the work, and she has a talent, which I like to call the muscle memory of an actress. So some actress will pick up this like this, right, and put it down here, and the next take put it here, the next take put it here, she'll put it right there every time where it belongs, right? And so as I'm watching each one of my actors, Harry, who comes in here, the most sweetest spirit, James, I'm talking about these guys they're not soft, but they are sweet-spirited people, and they're the most ruthless motherfuckers you want to see when the camera comes on. You know what I mean? And so that means that they were willing to let the material flow through them, and that's what an actor should do. So whether it's a big name or just someone who's coming right out of Yale or Juilliard, it's like, let the work go through you. You know what I mean? And my cast did that.
But that's got to be part of the script too, because again, it feels like a real place. It's not just people saying things to say it. It felt like, I'm from Detroit, so unfortunately I've driven that part of Ohio a lot, and it feels like that kind of small town thing. And I think that's a really hard thing to pull off. And big respect to you for this, because it really is an amazing movie.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And to talk about the filmmaking, that sound mix, I mean, it's terrifying.
Yeah, we had, you know who else helped us out when we got to the sound? Man, I can't remember Greg's last name right now. Greg and Bobby, fuck. Bobby Banks, I know that. That's his last name? That's why I can't remember it. But, no, because say it again, Paul, sorry.
Hespeth? Like a certain cabinet member, okay, yes.
Well, no,
yeah.
he's a master of sound. You watch movies like Straight Outta Compton and, I mean, so many movies. And this is our second movie together, right? And he's just meticulous with the sound. And you know, like my favorite scene is when the cars are chasing.
Yes.
We took the music out of that and say, fuck it, let the sound go. And he had that shit rumbling in the theater, so.
Well, I'm talking about the filmmaking too. One of my favorite scenes is that scene where Unica's running through that field at night. It looks really ghostly. It looks like something out of Night of the Hunter. It's like something of a nightmare. It's a really powerful film, sequence in the film.
But thank you. We talked about that with my DP, Brandon Cox.
Who's also here.
Yeah, D. Cox. In our second film together, Brandon was my DP on Cutthroat City. If things go well for me, he'll be my DP on my next film, and if I can still afford him. but he got us the truck with the big crane on top. And so we was running through with it, and you know, I'm in the backseat, you know, he let me steer the camera, we fucking like two guys in a video game. And then, but what he did that really helped that shot was he said, yo, let's smoke this whole fucking field out. So that fog you see, we just smoked that whole shit out. And so when that shit started drifting and you got that wide shot, it's like, what the fuck this guy running to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what is he running from? And psychologically, but I hope creatively you would get, and I'm not shy to say this, the idea of the runaway slave.
Oh, come on, 100%.
That was the idea
yes.
I wanted to get, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's exactly what it felt like. And Ohio was part of the Underground Railroad, so I definitely thought about that for that reason too. But you're talking about, I mean, so many of these scenes for me have these moments that, I mean, when one of these guys talks about give us those Jordans, and we see Randy's Jordans in a jar in the coroner's office. I mean, there's just so many notes like that you just sort of take in and go, this is a filmmaker who really knows how to achieve his effects and what he wants. And again, for me, that's how much you've grown. Because I watched all your stuff to get ready for this, and there's this kind of photorealist style in Cutthroat City that I really like, but this is like old-fashioned movie making. It's a big wide screen. We know where we are all the time, especially in that last 10 minutes of action. That's really hard to do. You know this because you've made action movies before. So let us know exactly where we are, have some idea how many people are still left to fight, how exhausted he is. I felt beat up by the end of the movie. Listen, that's astonishing to pull all that stuff off.
Thank you, brother, thank you. One of my favorite lines is like, let me negotiate. He's like, I'm Campbellsville's finest, Officer Sparaski.
But I mean, with this funny stuff too, I mean, did you hear the way the audience laughed when they said Karenville?
Well, first of all, thank you. You know, once again, it takes a team. I was blessed to have a good team. The first person on my team, of course, being my wife, Talani. Sat there, listened to the dialogue, and then that team grew to this village. And I want to just take a moment right now before I go to say thank you all for helping me make this movie, and may the world see it and enjoy it. Thank you, guys.